Hi, in this video I'm going to quickly do an unboxing and I'll show you how to set up a Dahua video recorder. This happens to be an NVR, and if you're interested, this is a 16 channel and this is the model number NVR 4116HS. Right. Make sure your unit is sealed. It should actually have a tape over. Right, so you can see a very big box for a very small item. There you go, there is the new NVR. You can see it's not very big. The size is 26 by, if you include the little jack here, that is 23.5. So, and the height, well, there you go, with including the foot, it is just under 5 centimeters. Right, so that's the bottom, top, front, side, little vent there, and there's the little fan on that side. What you'll get in the box, this is your power supply. You can see it is 1.5 amps, 48 volt. Then your country specific plug cable. It comes with the kettle plug. We call this a kettle plug. The power cable goes in over there just like that, and I will go through all the other aspects shortly. This is a little mouse which plugs in. You can plug it in that USB, or you can plug it in the front on this USB. Right, we have the little rubberized feet. So what you do is you just peel them off. It goes one there, one there, one there, and there. There's a little recess for the foot to go in. Press them down, and what the foot does is it just makes it so that it doesn't slide on your surface. You've got the screws. This is for your hard drive. Then you've got an Ethernet cable, probably Cat 5 or better. And the length of this cable, I will just measure it for you quickly, is 2 meters, well 1.98. Right, this is a SATA hard drive cable, and there is the power. This is going to be able to allow you to connect your hard drive. Right, then there's some little setup disc, some register privacy notices, and then there's a quick start guide. Right, I'm going to set this up and I'll show you step by step how to get going with your new NVR. Right, it's probably best to put your hard drive in now. Now the new NVRs take up to 6 terabyte hard drive. This happens to be a 5 terabyte NAS drive, but it'll still work even though it's a NAS drive. Right, so you're just going to open these two screws here, and that's just a star. And then there's a screw on the side here, right, and one on the side. Right, then this clips. If you look at it, what I'm doing, I'm just opening the sides with my fingers, and then I pull it a little bit up and out. See, because there's a little clip there, and I can't just pull it straight out. I have to pull it up a bit and then out. Right, so there is the inside of your NVR. Now what you want to do is you want to put your hard drive here, and as you can see, it comes with these cables. Now this one is for power. It fits only one way. You can see the clip on the front. And then here we have the hard drive data cable. SATA also can only fit one way, right? And it does click, and there we go. This is for the hard drive. Now you'll have to decide on the orientation. Right, now in here you'll see there are 4 spaces, and there are 2 other spaces there for screws. Now you can see this hard drive has spaces for screws over there, right? So it looks like you can use these or these. Now keep in mind this is quite a short cable, so I'm just going to plug it in now. And again, it only fits one way. There we go. And there's the power cable, which is a bit longer. Goes like that. Now you can see that this would only be able to fit one way. If you tried the other way, well, you can see that it is not going to fit in there. So it's going to go this way. And now the screws that came with it in the little packet, there we go. I'm going to now screw them in from the other side. Right, the hard drive is now installed. I checked the cables just to show you what's going on here. There's a little fan here. There's a little battery probably for the little BIOS little chip there to boot it, keep them the time and date in memory, and the firmware settings. And then at the back you can see what you're getting. It says 8 port. These are power over Ethernet, which means you can plug your camera directly into these and it will power up the camera. So if this is your camera, and then you could plug it straight in here directly without having to go through a power over Ethernet switch. This is kind of like your little switch. So what's going to happen here is you can have 8 cameras directly connected to the NVR, but then if you want to get the other 8, because this can do 16 channels, so 16 cameras, if you want the other 8, you're going to have a standalone power over Ethernet switch. I'll show you what that looks like a bit later. Right, just showing you here what you get. This is the link to your local network, so you're going to have to plug that into your local network, and I'm going to use that shortly. This is where your power is going to be connected, and then this is for your monitor. Now you can either go the analog, the VGA, or the HDMI. I have found that after a while the HDMIs tend to bomb. This is my third in NVR with an HDMI that has bombed. You can see my YouTube videos. So this tends to blow out, and then I end up having to just use the VGA. All right, so you might, this is quite nice that they give you both, but sometimes can be unreliable. All right, so that's the USB. Either you can access it on the front or the back. And then these RCA jacks here, you've got mic in and mic out. Right, to put the cover back on, just make sure you hold the sides like that, and then you're going to seat it. You'll see there's a little clip here, and then it goes over. You make sure you go over, and then you'll see that the screws all line up. Right, here's the NVR. I just want to boot it up, set a password, set the IP address, and then I'll plug it into the network so that I can do everything over the web browser. Alright, so there is the HDMI cable, and I'm just going to plug it into a local monitor. Alright, now I'm just going to power it up, and it's going to boot up directly. Now on the newer NVRs, the password setup is more elaborate, and the reason for this is that people are getting locked out of the NVRs. So what happens is your local importer or your local supplier is supposed to be able to unlock it in case you've made a mistake and you've forgotten a password. Alright, so I'm going to just select a password right now. Right, so you'll have to do it twice, and then it wants questions. Now you could give yourself a question here so that if you are in a situation where you've forgotten your password, at least you could jog your memory in some way. So I just put this here just to show you could put there your first dog's name, your primary school, whatever it is. Right, now you go to the next, and now it's asking you to draw an unlock pattern. You don't have to do this, you can just skip, and now it's coming to the registration part. And this is where it's a little bit different. The older NVR didn't require this information. So here, when you need to unlock it, the supplier will be able to see the email address, security questions, and this is another way. If you need to get an unlock key, then they can email it to you, because they'll check the email that was already used to set up the system. Now, you don't have to do this, but I would. Right, now they want you to agree to their terms and conditions. This is also a new, and you can go through all of this. And it's asking you if you want to do an auto check for updates. Personally, I don't like my NVR doing things without my express permission. When I'm ready to look for an update, I will go and look for an update. Okay, so now you've got to set up the basic settings. That is the device name. I'm just going to call this, you can call this whatever you want. You don't have to make any changes here. What you do want to change, however, is the time and date. So you can see there it is the 20th of February. The time is wrong, and let's just set the time zone, which will probably sort that out. There we go. Time zone is now set, and I don't want any daylight saving, so it's now done. Right, now the most important thing in my world is setting up the IP address. All of this other stuff can be done via the web browser login. So I just want to set my own IP address quickly. Okay, so this is the IP address, the address which you are going to type into your web browser in order to locate this NVR on your network. And then this is the subnet mask. Right, then you have the default gateway. Now, because this is a Class A address, this is the default, this is the subnet mask. It doesn't really matter if you put 255.255.255.0. It will still work as long as your cameras are on only changing this last octet. Right, now you can test this if there's a clash, if you're plugged into the network. I know there's not going to be a clash, so I don't have to test it. The default gateway is the address of your router, your router. So if you've got a router on your network, well, this is the router's IP address, internal address, not the external address. That is something separate. Right, so now I'll just say, right, now I just want to show you the next step. Now the next step is the QR code, and what it does is it allows you to just scan a QR code. You see, there we go, there's the QR code, and then it allows you to easily set up your remote login, because a lot of people struggle with that. I like to do it manually, so I'm just going to say disable, and I'm just going to say next. But if you've skipped through and you now want to change the IP address, now for example, I want to change IP address, you can just come here on the bottom row, and if you click network, just so you know, the top row represents what was here on the bottom row. So now can you see that this says settings? Now, if you come and you say system, you'll also see storage, event, network, camera. Now, if you come look here, you'll see that this bottom menu row here is the same as the ones shown here. So you can also just toggle through over here. Right now, what I want to do is I want to go to the network, and I want to change the IP address, because I want to give it an IP address that is unique to my network, and my network is 10.0, and then here 0, and I'm going to call this 250. So this is going to be host 250 on the 10 network, and then the subnet mask, you could make this 255.0.0.0. I'm going to leave it at 255.255.255 so that it doesn't give me an error in terms of the switch. Now I'll also show you here the gateway. This is the IP address of your router. This is the device on your network that lets you see the outside world. So this is your internal IP address. Remember, a router has two addresses, an internal and an external, your local address and your public address. So this is the internal address, the address that all the computers or NVR servers or whatever you have in your local network look to when they want to get out of the network. So this is the default gateway. So if you're not sure what this is, just put your router's IP address there. Right, and now you can test it, and right now I'm not plugged into a network. Here is my Ethernet cable, to which once I've changed this IP address, I will then be able to see the NVR on my network. So I'll just say, right, now once you've done this, you must say apply. All right, if you don't say apply and OK, it won't take that new address. So if you come here, it is accepted it. Now, just so you know, you might get a clash here with this switch function. You see it says there's switch 10.1.1.1. Now, if you look here, you'll see that I've kind of done this incorrectly, because this should be 255.0.0.0, but I noticed there's a clash when I do that if the switch is 10.1.1.1, and this is the default. You see, that's the default for the switch. So I'm just letting you know, if you are watching this and you're saying, hey, you put in the incorrect subnet mask, well, if I put a 0 here, you're going to see that it's going to give me, well, let's do it again. If I put a 0 here for a Class A address, as it should be, you can see it gives me this error, and it says switch and device shall not be in the same network segment. So if you're just wondering why I'm putting 255 here, that's the reason. It's because of that error message that I'm getting, and there is the switch there, you can see. So that it's fine, it will work by doing this. There's no problem. It's very likely that your cameras will be on this network. If you've got a 10.0.0.250 IP address for your NVR, your cameras will probably be 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.5, and so forth. Remember that you can't give it the gateway address. This is now reserved on your network. So 10.0.0.2 is the address of your gateway, your router. All right, so there we go. The unit is now ready to be plugged into your local network, to which at that point it's much easier to set up via the web interface, for the reason that all the cameras are plugged into the unit, and right now the unit is sitting on a desk and all the cameras have already been installed. So now I'm going to go put this in the cupboard, and then I'm going to just log in via the web browser to do the remainder of the settings. So, right, there is the NVR over here. I've slotted it between a external power over Ethernet switch. That's what an external power over Ethernet switch looks like. That just happens to be an 8-port. I have a HP 24 port underneath there just for other networking devices, and then you can see another NVR sandwich in between there. Sorry, it's a bit of a mess here, but I'm just showing you. This is just like at a lab. So there is another NVR, and then this is the new one. And as you can see, I've got only 6 cameras connected directly. Now, if you want to get the other 8 cameras, because remember it's a 16 channel, you would have to use a external switch like this one. And I do have a video showing how to set that up. So in this video, I'm now going to show you how to set this up using the web interface and setting up the cameras, the recording, and all that. All right, and just so you know, this is a cable that is going to a monitor just to view those cameras. Now, just a note, this cable over here is the cable that goes to your local network. So this is the cable that connects to my switch. There at the bottom, you can see there's a network switch. It's not a power over Ethernet switch, it's just a regular switch. And I can now connect to my NVR via one of these computers that are on my local network. So these are the cables coming directly from where the cameras are installed. So if you have one at maybe the entrance, maybe your reception area, maybe in the boardroom, wherever it is, or if it's at your house, maybe in your garden, your main gate, in the street. So these are the cables that are running directly from the camera. So they plug in there, and only 8, as I said. If you want more, you have to then go to a power over Ethernet switch. All right. You could just come here with your laptop and connect directly to that port there, or just plug into your switch over there, but I've already done that, so I'm now just going to go and show you the login via the web browser, and that means that I'm connecting to my NVR through my network switch. There's the switch which is connected to the NVR, so it's all on the same network. Right, so the final setup is actually very easy. You'll just log in. So I like to log in via the web. So there you go. This happens to be Internet Explorer 10.0.0.250. Where does that address come from? Well, actually, remember I set it up manually on the network settings of the NVR. And if you like a different browser like me, I like Firefox, well, there you go. This is Firefox, same story, 10.0.0.250. So you're going to just put the username and then the password. Now, if you are using the new version of Internet Explorer, it wants you to download the Chrome app. If you use the older version of Internet Explorer, it won't do that. You can log in directly. There we go. And all it wants is the plugin. So you'll just say run, or you could say save, it's fine, and then run. And it's just configuring it. And then unfortunately you will have to close the browser and then restart the browser. So you'll have to go again, and there we go. Now the LAN and WAN option, the LAN means that it's going to be in its full glory. It's going to give you, it's going to expect that you have a lot of bandwidth on your network. It's going to display the video streams at full capacity, while the WAN is going to tone it down, thinking that you are logging in remotely. So obviously I'm on a LAN, so I just use the LAN. Now you can see how it now works once I've done the, I've installed that plugin. Right, when you log in, you will see this screen. Now this is through the web. Now here it's already put the cameras, it's already slotted the cameras in here because I just swapped this NVR for another NVR. Now in your case, you might find that it doesn't do this. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to setup and you'll come here to registration. Now this is where you do everything to do with the camera name, the encoding setting, and you can set the image characteristics, the brightness and things like that. So now what you would have is a list here. This is all the cameras that your NVR has found on the network. Now as you can see, there's more than 5 cameras on this network, and it's already put cameras into the, it's already
enrolled or registered cameras into the NVR, and this is probably because these cameras are directly plugged into the NVR. So if I remove these, maybe on your side you might have it that'll look like this, and you might have to manually add each camera one by one. So in my case, because the cameras are on the same IP address and they've already been installed on an NVR before, it just comes automatically. You see there, when I press refresh, there are the 5 cameras that happen to be plugged directly into the NVR. If I want to add a camera that is on maybe on the switch, on another the power over Ethernet switch, then I'll have to manually add it, and I may even have to modify the IP address. Now I do have a video showing that, but I'll briefly just tell you what you need. All you need to do is know the password, and the password is either 6/8 or admin. So it's admin or admin and then 88888 6 times. So then you will put the IP address, and make sure that you put the IP address in the same range as the NVR itself. All right, I'm not going to be doing that now. I do have a video on that. What I want to show you is when you've enrolled the cameras, you can view them and see, like this one says driveway. I already know it's driveway because the camera was already named in the past. But maybe you want to go and see maybe a preview of this. So you can come here, it says web browse, and I'll just click on it, and you can see it brings up another window. Now the password I think is just admin, and then I'll log in. Okay, the password is too weak. It wants me to install to set up a new password. I'm just going to say cancel. I don't want to do that as yet. And then can you see that it's giving me a preview of this camera? This means I'm now logging directly into this camera. This is, if you had the IP address of this camera directly, you would then be logging in directly. So that means that that says driveway. I would then be able to go 10.1.1.66 and I would see that. And then you can also make setting changes at the camera itself if you want to. You see there are some settings which you can change, the brightness and so forth. Okay, so most important thing is I just want to show you how to get started here. So I'm not so worried about this part here. So this is where you preview if you need to. Okay, so I have my 5 cameras. They are now showing up on my NVR, and now you might want to make some changes to the image. So you might want to set the brightness. You might want to, you can see how the sun is shining directly towards the camera, and it's almost like blacking out these shadows. So you might want to use a wide dynamic range, which is quite useful because it makes the shadows a bit brighter. So let's just see, let's refresh that. If you want to do the wide dynamic range, you must tell it how much you want to do it by. You see, now what's happening is that's what it's supposed to do. You can see how it's brightened up the background there, especially the shadows. But then it kind of washes out some of the bright parts as well. So it's kind of a catch-22. I do recommend it, especially if the sun shines quite close or directly to the camera and you get a lot of shadows. Look, if I put it on quite excessive, you can see that it'll be a bit too much. Right. So anyway, the encoding, this is the bit rate that you want to encode at. Now, what you might find is on your, you've got a cool thing here, which should be somewhere here. Okay, I'm not seeing it, but on the NVR itself, it does give you a little bar graph or a little graph showing you how much of the bandwidth you have used. So it might be fine for you to come here and set everything to the maximum. Here you can go and just maximize all these settings, but then you might find you run out of bandwidth. Remember, these NVRs have a complete bandwidth limitation. So you will find that this particular one can only do 80 megabits per second. So that means that you've got to add all these things. If you've got 10 cameras all at 10 kilobits per second, 10,000 kilobits per second, then plus the substream, it's going to be over the bandwidth of the NVR. So that's a little bit confusing for people. They think they can put 16 cameras at 4 megapixels and run the bit rate at the highest, and it won't. You'll find that the NVR will reach its buffer limit. So I just say set this up cleverly. The important cameras, put the bit rate very high and the image quality high. But cameras that are not as important, well, then you could put this a bit lower, and also the substream, because we add these up. If it's more than 80 megabits per second, then it's going to reach a buffer limit, and then you won't be able to see anything or have any recordings for that channel. So this is where you set up the resolution, the frame rate. So obviously, first prize is to set everything on maximum. But keep in mind, you will use your hard drive. You will run out of space much quicker if everything is recording at the highest bit rate. All right, so that's where you'll set that up. And then the camera name is over here. There you can see I've already done it, carport, main gate, fence. So there we go. So if I look at the preview, you see there are my cameras, and then they are good to go. The last thing that you just need to do is setting up the event so that it actually does record when there is movement. So you'll then have to just set each one. There you go. It's enabled. So it's set up. There's the you can copy the configuration. So you can say you can say copy, and you can copy it to all of them. So once you've set up all your particular requirements, the post record, maybe you want voice prompt snapshots and extra things when it does record. And then you can also come here and then just have a look at your storage and make sure that your settings are correct. It must overwrite. You don't want it to just record and stop. And then the schedule. When do you want it to record and how do you want it to record? When it's motion detection, just general, always recording, only when there's an alarm, motion detection and alarm, or the intelligent video surveillance. All right, so I just come to the hard drive manager. I can see the hard drive is fine there. It's coming up as 4.54 terabytes. Remember that even though the hard drive says 5 terabytes, you don't get the full use of the hard drive. So that is a 5 terabyte hard drive giving me 4.54 terabytes of write space. All right, so there you can set the record, how it will. Right, just a note about the video detection. So say you want to have channel 2 to be able to record. Now you will come here and you will say region. Now what will happen is that you can highlight where it must record. You see, I want it to record everywhere, but maybe you've got a channel which has got a little bit of noise or like a lot of movement and you don't want it to keep recording. Maybe this you don't want this part to record because there's a road. You only want it when a car approaches the driveway, but you don't want it to record there. So then do you see how I'm just clicking and highlighting, actually taking away this part of the shaded area. Now the other thing you can do is the sensitivity. I recommend you increase the sensitivity. I found that the sensitivity tends to be too low, so I tend to make it a bit higher, and then you'll just say okay. So that's how you adjust the sensitivity, and then you'll just say okay over here as well. So that brings me to the end. If you're interested in the heat map, people counting, I do have a video on that. The thing you need to know about this, it works as long as you have a camera that allows it to work. So for example, if you want to do audio detect, you need a camera that has a microphone that can actually pick up audio. So this is the newer cameras, and then what you do is you set the volume, and then when it picks up a certain volume, then it starts to record. I do have a video on how to set that up. So that brings me to the end of this part of the video when you're setting up via the web browser. I was quite happy to see that you can set the display here. On previous versions it didn't have it. All right, now some people don't like that and they might want to use something called Smart PSS. Well, Smart PSS gives you a little bit more control and the interface a little bit better, but it kind of does the same thing. So what you would do with Smart PSS is you would come here and you would say device configuration, and you would actually enroll here. I've got it picked up that there's an NVR here, and there's my network. And then what you'll do is you'll actually set up your NVR. There's the NVR, there's the IP address, and now it says offline, so I want to log in. So what I'll do is I'll just come here. There we go. I put in the username and password, and now I will be able to log in. So if I come here to live view, I can just say login, and it will automatically log in. So it'll ask me for the username and password only once. So that's one of the nice things, is it's quite quick with Smart PSS, because as you log in, boom, it's there, and every time you launch Smart PSS, it'll automatically it saves the password and automatically log in to these cameras. So if I want to see this camera right now, it should come up shortly, but let's say you want to go main gate. There we go. There was that camera that I was talking about. Now if you want to do all the settings with that, well, that's quite easy. You go to device configuration, and then here you've got the camera for this NVR, and then you can say remote device, and there's this similar thing. You see, it's just shown to you via Smart PSS, and there's the network, and there's the events, your video detection. So it's very much the same thing. It's just that you can use Smart PSS to do this if you'd like. If you'd like to see how to set this up, I also have a video on Smart PSS and how to set up your NVR. All right, so that brings me to the end of the video, and thanks for watching. Cheers.